How's it going out there, everybody? Today is a great episode. It's great because every episode is great to me. I love them. But I have a question for everybody out there. Have you ever wondered what it is like to be able to hunt 217 acres, in particular, 217 acres by yourself and live on the property? Well, if you do ever wonder that, today you can live vicariously through Jon Workman. He has got the most perfect situation, in my opinion, in the state of Michigan. And he's killed 3 bucks in the last 3 years that will, basically solidify that statement. So today is going to be an unbelievable story. It's with Jon Workman of Southern Michigan talking about his farm and the bucks that he's killed the last 3 years, which are bucks that just about anybody would kill in any state in the U.S. I cannot wait for you guys to listen to this interview. Welcome to the Fall Podcast. I am your host, Aaron Blasey, and today is episode 141. And like I said just a little bit ago, it might have been a weird delivery. Now that I look back at it, I'm like, well, why did I kind of say it like that? But honestly, I am so excited about this. Jon Workman, he lives down in the Niles area. Now, if anybody doesn't know where Niles, Michigan is, I don't know how far it is, but it's just north of South Bend, Indiana. Where, Notre Dame is, the University of Notre Dame. It's just north of that into Michigan, just over the border. So this is the thing. Jon Workman, I am so jealous of this guy. He has the best scenario that I think I could ever draw up, for any whitetail hunter. But it's in the state of Michigan. And I'm not going to lie to you. You need to hear the story about these 3 bucks that he's killed in the last 3 years on this property. It's unbelievable. They're deer that you would kill just anywhere. So, I just resaid what I basically said a little bit ago. So enough of me blabbering. That's about it. I want to get over this interview with Jon to let you guys hear this. This is pretty crazy. It is literally, in my opinion, I'm going to say it again, the best situation you could have in any state, but especially in Michigan. So hopefully you guys enjoy this one. Thank you guys for all the support, all the downloads, and keep grinding it out. So here is this interview with Jon. All right, welcome back to the Fall Podcast, and today on the other line, I have a gentleman from Southern Michigan, around the Niles area, actually, Jon Workman. Jon, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Aaron, how are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Good. How are you doing?
Great, man. Great. Finished up my deer season. I'm just focused on work and family right now, so my wife's happy to have me home finally.
I bet. That's good.
Yeah.
So you reached out to me not too long ago, and you got a pretty unique story in the fact that you live in Southern Michigan. That's one thing. High pressured state, like everybody knows. And you guys bought a family farm, if I'm not mistaken, 3 years ago, and you've killed 3 really good deer on that thing in the last 3 years. And I mean, 3 deer that anybody would kill in any state in the United States, and especially Michigan. And that's what I want to get into today, because I got to pick your brain and figure out how you're doing it.
Yeah. So 3 years ago, started out, my wife and I were looking for some property, and over the, 2017 and early 2018, we wanted to build a house, and we're looking for some property. And my father-in-law, the farm came up for sale. It's a little over, it's like 217 acres. And he offered to buy this farm for the family, but in order for us to put our house on.
Sure.
So it worked out for both of us. I got the farm. I'm obviously a big deer hunter. I wanted somewhere to hunt. I wanted to be able to walk out my back door and hunt. And my wife didn't really care. She doesn't care about hunting. She just wanted to build a house. So yeah, we got the farm in the spring of May of 2018. And so as soon as we got the keys, man, I started hanging cameras. I found tree stands. I'm calling everybody to ask them, hey, whose stuff is this? We got to get it off of here, type thing. And so right away, first off, I grew up in northern Indiana. So
Okay.
my wife was from Niles. So I've only actually lived in Niles for 3 years.
Okay.
But you always hear the stories. Everybody, I listen to different podcasts and other things, and everybody's always talking about how they almost kind of downplay Michigan deer hunting.
Yeah, definitely.
Kind of like, so anyway, we get the farm. I start hanging cameras.
Well, before you get into that, I got a question for you. Okay. So first of all, to find land to buy anywhere in any state, it can be difficult. And you found like 217 acres in southern Michigan, that's a good chunk. My family farm actually here in central Michigan is 215 acres. So that's a good chunk. But kind of break down the farm before you get into that. Like, what is it? Is it rolling hills? Like, what kind of topography? Is it all timber? Is there any, food on it? What is it?
Well, 120 acres is tillable.
Okay.
And the rest of it's made up of patches of timber. And we have 3 man-made ponds. You wouldn't know it by looking at them now, but they're all man-made ponds. And at one time, the story we got they were there was a big, like, from Clark Equipment,
Yep.
Clark, like the old forklifts and stuff. That Clark Equipment owned this property at one time, and they dug these ponds, and they would have the executives come out, and they would fly fish out there. They were all stocked with trout and all types of stuff. But since then, over the course of, 50, 60 years, some of that stuff's kind of grown up. So we have 3 ponds, 120 acres of tillable, and there's kind of patches of timber throughout the whole place. So I don't know. I mean, it's kind of laid out really good for what I like to do. I mean,
for sure.
For deer hunting, it's perfect. Yeah.
So, now is the food, like, can you kind of explain? Is it in the middle? Is it in the front of the property? How many different points of access do you have to the property?
Really, one point of access for me to get in.
Yep.
But I would say the food is, as far as the agricultural fields, the timber's kind of more in the middle.
Okay.
The timber and all the ponds are kind of in the middle. We have a giant power line that runs through the whole property too, and that is what that has become. Now that I'm in my 3rd year, I've really focused on that.
Okay.
Because that's, the power line company, they come in and clean it up every 4 or 5 years, and now it's just the big bucks love to lay in that stuff.
Yep.
So that's kind of where I put most of my focus between the ponds, the power line, and the ag fields.
Okay.
That's kind of where I focus most of my time. But,
I got you. Well, the reason why I ask is because our family farm, we've got a 65-acre hayfield, and there's only one point of access to our farm, and it's 65-acre hayfield butts right up to the front of it. So you have to literally, our trail goes through our hayfield to get back to our deer camp, which, our deer camp, we built it 20 years ago, which now, me being older and everything, I feel like it's in the most beautiful spot on the farm or the property, but it's in the worst spot for deer hunting. So in my opinion, but you have to drive through the field to get to the cabin, to park. That's where a lot of people park and everything. And to hunt it in the morning, it's nearly impossible because you have to come through the field. You're blowing the field. And we're one of the only, I shouldn't say the only, but one of the bigger destination ag fields in the section. So there is tons of deer in our field all the time.
Right. Yeah. I see what you're saying. My driveway to get back to my house it's 3/4 of a mile long, and we're smack dab right in the middle of the property.
Okay.
So yeah, like you're saying now, like last year when we had corn, it was easier for me to get to my spots in the morning because I could, the corn was kind of, I could hide myself a lot better.
Yep.
But right this year we had beans, and I found that it was very difficult to get to, especially anything on a field edge or something, but
sure.
A lot more difficult this year for my morning sits than last year with the corn.
Okay. So are you mainly, and I'm just trying to get everything out there right now, are you mainly more of like a morning hunter, a evening hunter? Does it really matter? Like, do you prefer one or the other?
Well, I've had my most most of my successes came in the morning, but I prefer an evening hunt just because I feel like I can get in a lot quieter. I just feel more comfortable in the evenings, but I've had more success in the morning, so I don't know what that says.
All right. Are you a guy that, pays attention to the moon phases, stuff like that? Are you big into that?
I bought one of those moon guides last year, and I tried to follow it and get into it, but it didn't really seem to match up with what I was seeing.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I do now. This year, I had I don't remember the date, middle of October sometime, whatever the red moon was. It was like 70 degrees. I decided not to hunt that night because it was hot and it was, like what they call, the October lull.
Right.
And I'm riding four-wheelers with my boys and I see probably a mid 140s, close to 158 point standing in the middle of a bean field. So I kind of kicked myself for that, but that was, they say, that was what I was told from a guy I work with. That was a red moon day or something. So,
okay, I gotcha. Now, are you more of a mobile hunter, like hang and hunt kind of stuff, or is it a lot of set stands?
I have a lot of set stands. I'm 6'7". I'm probably 270 pounds, so it's hard for me to get up and down a tree quickly. So I have a lot of ladder stands that I have set up in different areas. And I do have some XOP stands that I use. I want to tear something down kind of quick but as far as carrying my sticks and standing in with me, I don't do a lot of that.
Okay.
But most of my stands are set and set in place already.
So you're a little bigger than the average human, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I totally get it. So I mean, I think that's kind of the basis I wanted to touch right off the bat, but let's get into this. So you guys bought this farm, built a house on it in 2018, correct?
Yeah, well, we had the farm in 2018. We just moved into our house in June of this year.
Okay. But you've been able to hunt the farm for 3 years.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So then going into that first year, you started to say you put out a lot of trail cams when you guys bought it. Like, what was your plan getting into that first year? Like, just kind of cast a big net and see what happened with the trail cams?
Yeah, I just wanted to, and at that time we could still throw mineral down in Michigan. So I was putting like Lucky Buck and all types of stuff out on cameras just to try to see what was in the area. I had heard rumors when we first, there was a bunch of tree stands and stuff that were on the farm, and while I was tracking down the owners, I eventually found them, and they were telling me that there was there was a 180 running around. Is what everybody in the area was talking about. That's what I have never seen a 180. So, I mean that was what the rumor was. So I'm like, man, that's I never heard of something like that around here, So I was hanging cameras and just trying to get a pinpoint, see where the deer, how they move around, how they use the property, just trying to figure it out really. So I started getting pictures, right away of 130s to low 140s bucks, pretty much right away. Once the velvet season started,
right.
It was soybeans that year. So I mean, every deer in the area was hitting our property. So
yeah. When you pulled that first card pull, and like, what was your thoughts? Like you said, you had some 130s, 140s bucks. Were you like, holy shit, like this is going to be something really good?
It was exciting. Yeah, it was really exciting because I'm like, actually, it was not my first couple of card pulls they were just starting to grow, get their growth going.
Yep.
But right around the July, August time frame is when I got a picture of a really big, his brow tines were almost as tall as his G2s. He was an 8-point, and I ended up naming him Goalpost. So I was like, I started getting pictures of this deer, and that was the deer I wanted to kill that year. And he was a really good buck I would say anywhere in the Midwest, but especially here from Michigan. But yeah, it was just exciting when anytime you pull a card and you get a shooter or a couple. We had probably 3 or 4 really, in that ballpark that year.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just exciting, and especially on a new farm. you know, it was something I could call my own, or I was going to live on. It was just, I don't know, just something about it was just, it was just awesome. You
For
know?
sure. Yeah. And coming from Indiana, you know, I don't know what part of Indiana you're from or anything, but to me, Indiana is, you know, what everybody's calling a sleeper state. Like I've seen people bring big deer out of Indiana. So, you know, coming from there, you know, growing up, did you ever kill, you know, were you killing good bucks like consistently? And what I mean good, you know, 130s, 140s, 150s, even bigger, you know, like coming from there, were you kind of like, not a lot of people move to Michigan, you know, that are big hunters, you know. So what was your thoughts coming from Indiana to Michigan and not really probably knowing a ton about the hunting, you know, in a certain area?
Well, so I'm a fairly new hunter. When I grew up in Indiana, I played high school and college basketball.
Okay.
And so most of my time in my high school, you know, in younger days were, even into college, I was on a basketball court.
Yep.
So I didn't really do a lot of hunting until after I was done playing basketball in college. So probably I was in my early to mid 20s before I got my first bow.
Oh, no kidding. So okay.
My dad's a farmer, and I would actually, when I was in college, I would drive home to northern Indiana, LaGrange, Indiana, and I would have a spot behind one of his farmer buddies' houses. And it was on 7 acres, but I saw a lot of really good deer, but they were always off of they were, you know, on 7 acres. I could see for a couple hundred yards, but I couldn't always shoot them because they weren't on the private night access to. But I would say the quality deer I'm seeing now is very, very similar to what I was seeing over there. Okay. I just have a lot more property to my disposal now than I did back then.
Okay, so I mean, your view wasn't really, you know, I don't know what the word is for it, but you know, you it sounds like, you know, you really got serious about it and started hunting in your 20s. So, you know, you didn't really grow up, you know, from being like 10 years old on like seeing these giant deer, and you probably really didn't have any desire. It wasn't one of those things that you even thought of, you know, probably growing up.
No,
like a big deer, you know.
Yeah, no, I tell you what, I honestly, probably 5 or 6 years ago is when I shot my first buck.
No kidding. Okay.
Yeah. So I didn't even know, like I would always hear people talk about score and all. I didn't even really understand it. And, until once I killed that first one, I don't know, man, I just have been hooked on it ever since.
Yep. And
so every year I just listen to I read magazines. I'm just sick for it, you know.
Yep.
So
I envy you though in that aspect though, because I mean the hunting industry in my opinion has just gotten to be so much of like an inches game, and sometimes it just gets to the point where it's just sickening, you know. I said it on one of my last podcasts. It was 2 episodes ago. I killed a really good, you know, deer in Kansas last week, December 3rd or 4th, 3rd, I think it was the 3rd. You know, but he had a broken beam. He broke 34 inches off because we have pictures of him with everything on his right side. And when I found out he had a broken beam after reviewing the footage, I kind of got down on myself, and I'm like, God dang, like, why are you being mad at yourself? Like, you just killed one of the oldest, if not the oldest deer on the farm. And, you know, it was a really cool hunt. I've got, you know, me and the guys that I hunt with and everything and work with, we have 2 years of history with this deer, at least 2 years. It could go back farther. We haven't checked. But like, this deer is just a warrior of a whitetail, and it's what guys would kill to shoot, you know. And
yeah,
you know, if you want to put a score on him, we did score him at like 126 right now. And you know, if he had his, you know, what he broke off, he'd be right at like 160, and that's a giant deer. You know,
that's a giant anywhere, you know, and a 126 is a great deer, but he just doesn't have a beam and a G3. And it's like, gosh, and I got so pissed at myself because for a moment, I forgot about like why I did it, why I do this, you know, and it's like, don't get wrapped up in it. So I envy you when you say that, like, you know, you didn't get wrapped up into the inches game. So that's good. Yeah, no, it took me as you know, there was like my first 2 or 3 years of really getting into it. I was shooting, you know, my first 2 bucks were 2.5-year-olds.
Yep.
And then I'm like, okay, the more I read and the more I started really understanding, and like, hey, you gotta let the little ones go. So you manage all, so then I started understanding like, well, once you get your first couple kills, and it's like, okay, I want to move up to this now.
Yep.
And
it's all stepping stone deal.
And it kind of all just kind of came together when we got the farm. Now I had the ground to kind of do a little bit of that. And on 7 acres, I was just kind of limited to what I would eat,
sure.
What would walk by me,
Yeah, definitely.
So now that I have the 200 plus acres, I'm really picky, honestly, probably more picky than anybody else.
Now, let me ask you this. Are you the only person that hunts those 200 acres?
I am.
Oh my gosh. You might just become my best friend. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, my neighbors, I have a lot of guys around me that, have the 10, maybe 15 acres, 5 to 15 acres, anywhere in that ballpark. So around me, there's a lot of people, but on my 200 acres, it's just me.
Dude, so. That is a good problem to have anywhere in the country, but especially in Michigan.
Season, when it's gun season, I actually see a lot of good bucks during gun season because I feel like they just kind of all run to the middle of my property.
For sure, yeah, definitely. Now, do you get a lot of hunting pressure around your area, like a lot of gun pressure?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I would say once November 15th, it's at least the sound of it. You just hear sounds of gunshots going off.
Right. Yep.
All the time. But I'd say I would say most people around here are gun hunters.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of guys around here are into the crossbow thing, but most of the hunting pressure comes during gun season.
Okay, I gotcha. So, going back, I keep going down tangents because I my mind works like, okay, I got to ask him this and ask him that. But going back to that first year, that first card pull, or, one of the first card pulls, you're like, holy shit, I've got 130s and 140s. Like, that's unbelievable. So coming into that season, what did your season kind of sum up your season in a shorter version, I guess, because I want to get into the the next 2 seasons as well. But like, what did that first season really? How did it unfold, and what did it teach you?
Well, my goal for that season I just wanted to learn my property.
Yep.
I just wanted to learn how the deer, how they used it. A lot of my stand placements were, like I said, I was kind of new to this at that time, so I was just kind of going off by what the previous guys hunting the property told me. Hey, this is a really good. We saw this many deer here and whatever, and just off listening to podcasts and stuff. So that's I'm just trying to use all that knowledge I would gather from podcasts, magazine, whatever, and apply that to what I had. So. My main goal that year was just to learn. I just wanted to learn my property, and obviously I wanted to shoot a good buck.
Right.
So, I saw actually that buck I told you I named him Goalpost. October 12th of that year, whatever the first cold front in October was, I saw him that night.
Okay.
He was like 100 yards. Did not come in close enough, obviously, to get a shot, but at least I saw him, and I was like, that was really exciting because that was the first big deer I had seen on my own property. So that was exciting. And then I had a couple other good sightings of the, in that, 3.5-year-old deer, in the 120, 130 range. And then that November 18th that year is when I was able to shoot. I shot the deer I shot that fall. He was a 9-point. He's probably in the low to mid 130s. Class.
And October 18th, you said?
Or November 18th.
November 18th. Okay, so you killed him with a gun or a bow?
I killed him with a gun.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, at that point, was that your biggest deer?
At that point, that was the biggest deer I killed.
Okay, well, I'm not laughing at you. I'm just laughing because I know what you've killed the next 2 years. So I'm like, I want to get into that. Because that deer that you killed in that first year, I would love to be able to get an opportunity at a deer like that every year here in Michigan. I mean, that's what I'm striving for is like, heck, I'm still not trying to shoot the 3-year-olds. I'm not to that point yet where I can move up to a 4-year-old here in Michigan anyway. But how did that hunt kind of unfold? Like, what was, for a deer to make it, 3 or 4 days, 5 days after opening day here in Michigan, that's pretty good, especially a buck of that caliber.
Yeah. Well, what kind of how it happened was, once gun season started, I just wasn't seeing anything.
Okay.
And it's been that way the last 2 years, really. But so I had the farmer. I have a pretty good relationship with the guy who farms our property, and I had him leave me. He left me 2 acres of standing beans, and so I decided I didn't see anything opening day, or even the next really like the first 2 or 3 days of gun season.
You didn't see any deer at all?
Well, anything I wanted to shoot.
Okay.
I'd see some does and some younger bucks and stuff, and so I decided to come sit over these standing beans, and as I was walking in, this is probably a mistake. I walked kind of through the middle of one of the fields.
Yep.
I didn't want to walk through there's a ATV trail that runs through the side of the woods I was hunting on, but sometimes the does will bed kind of like right off. I didn't want to, walking through the leaves and stuff. I didn't want to do any, kick anything up. So I decided to walk straight to my stand through the field, and I ended up bumping like 3 does walking in. So I was like, oh shit, I just kind of fucked myself for this. It was like, 3:45, because anyway, I said, screw it, I'm going to sit here. I've already committed. I'm going to sit here. And probably a half hour later, I had a 2.5-year-old run across the power line and into the beans, so, okay, I'm like, okay, maybe this is going to happen. Then the 2.5-year-old kind of gets spooked. He looks behind him, kind of gets spooked, and I can't figure out what's going on. I thought maybe he caught my wind, or maybe he caught my ground scent when I walked in or something. And then all of a sudden, the one I ended up shooting, he just runs out like he's pissed off, and he, runs him off, and he's standing right in the middle eating the beans. No other deer in the field, and he was probably, I don't know, 150 yards when I shot him.
Okay.
So
I personally, I don't think you made a mistake at all there. I mean, coming in the evening, not wanting to, blow anything that might be on the edges, coming through that field might not have been a bad idea, just because of, I don't know your scenario or where, what the topography is, or if the field is a high point or anything like that. But we do that a lot. I mean, this year, the deer that I killed in Kansas, I did the same thing in a CRP field. I didn't want to, bump any deer that are on the edges, so I went right through the middle of the CRP. I mean, I look like a turd in a punch bowl standing out there, but but I'd rather have a deer see me from a distance than me walk right up on a deer, you know what I mean, or a shooter and bump him. So I don't think you made a mistake at all. Obviously, and we killed a deer that night.
Yeah, no, I get worried. There's railroad tracks that is on the backside of our property.
Okay.
And so it's really thick in there, but to walk to this, where I have this stand, you kind of got to walk right into it. Well, it's real thick in that, and a lot of times those deer will bed on right at the edge of the field, between the tracks and the bean field. And so I was just worried about them laying right on the edge, watching me walk right in.
I got you.
That was what I was worried about. But,
yep.
So
you killed that buck, and then, going into the next year, because that was the only buck you killed that year, right? The first year?
Yes, that was the only buck I killed that year, yep.
Okay, so going into, the latter part of that year and into the next year, did you know that you had some good bucks make it through?
Oh, yeah, I did. Well, yes. So my main focus that year was I wanted to find this goalpost, the buck I named Goalpost. That was the deer I wanted to go after, because I'd only seen him one day the previous year, and that was in the middle of October. So I was hoping I didn't have any pictures of him, and all summer or whatever. I just was hoping maybe he'd come back or something. So
okay.
that was my buck I wanted to kill. But so I started focusing more on another side of the farm that I had not focused on the previous year. So I just hung some cameras along the power line behind one of our ponds, and my first card pull, I had 3 or 4 shooters on it right away.
This is going into 2019?
Going into 2019.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah, so then can't remember where I was going with that, but yeah, I had or 4 shooters, and so it was all bucks that I did not recognize from the previous year, but all in that 3.5 to 4 year old range.
Okay.
So.
Wow. So no sign of goalpost yet then.
No, I still don't even know where he's at. He's probably long dead by now.
Oh, okay.
But, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I never did catch up with him.
I gotcha. So coming into the 2019 season, you said you got, first couple card pulls, you got some good deer. Now, did you have a target deer that you were trying to target that year that maybe showed up and you're like, well, shit, this deer is going to be real big and mature?
So during the summer months and early fall, there was a big 9-point who that was a deer. I had seen him all summer, and then even up to the middle of October, he had been pretty, he'd been there. He didn't really seem to leave a lot.
Okay.
And then, so that was a deer I wanted to kill. And, so I spent most of my time trying to figure out where he was at, where to put stands to try to intercept him. But on November 1st, I got a picture of an absolute giant.
Oh, jeez.
And so once I got a picture of him, all my focus changed from I didn't even care about that other deer anymore. I just wanted to shoot this deer, and that's where it all that's where all my focus was at.
Okay, so November 1st comes around, and you get a picture of a giant. Now, explain a giant.
Like a deer you see on a TV show, like a deer you see in Iowa, like you hear people in Iowa talk about, but we're in the state of Michigan.
Okay, so is it a daylight photo? Is it?
It was 10 o'clock in the morning.
Holy shit! Really?
A Friday morning, November 1st.
Okay, so was he on a scrape? Was he, just?
No, he was making. So actually, my house was being built. So there was guys working on my house, and this picture was taken maybe 100 yards off the driveway, walking between 2 of our ponds, heading into the power line. I mean, if you were those guys, I don't know how they didn't see him. He walked right in plain view of those guys at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, so what did you think he was doing then at that point? Like, what was he just working through there? I mean, you've never seen him before in your life. Like, what's he doing?
I've never seen that deer. Well, back towards that power line, there's probably another 50 acres of woods.
Okay.
There's the big pond that's back there, and then also the power line in the woods kind of connects to one of our ag fields. So that's a big doe bedding area back there. I just figured he was going back there to bump some does around or something, or that's what I thought he was doing, and. But that's the only picture I have ever got of him. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So you get that picture, and now, what day did you pull that card and you got that picture then? It was on the 1st, but when did you pull the card?
I pulled the card about an hour after he walked by the camera.
Oh, no shit. Okay. So.
Yeah, I was actually, I worked till that Friday. I got off work at 10:30, and I showed up I got to my property at 11. So where this camera's at, it's on a bird feeder that's, it's right off the driveway. It's a real easy to access camera. I just put it there because it's easy for me to access. And it's kind of in between 2 ponds. It's kind of a little pinch point. Those deer, when they come from one side of the farm to the other, it's maybe a 40, 50 yard wide spot. They have to get to that power line, they have to walk through these 2 ponds between this area to get to that side of the farm. So I stuck a camera there just because I catch everything coming through there. They'll walk right by it. So
it's a perfect pinch right between 2 ponds.
Oh yeah.
And like you said, you're driving down the driveway. You could stop and run over there real quick and pull the card, and nobody really is the wiser, you'd think.
Yeah.
So
no,
when you get it, you go back and I'm sure you're like, holy crap! Like, what? The gears start turning. What do I do now? The rut is here. Like, what's your thought process? What's your plans?
Well, as soon as I get the photo, I actually did not have any stands back towards, or I had one stand, but it was kind of set up for for a gun hunt, really.
Okay.
So I had to move a stand. I moved the stand right away, and back to where I thought, back kind of where I knew the does were kind of bedded, but not like right in there, but right off. Maybe I'd have like a 30, 40 yard shot with my bow, kind of where I thought he was going to be running around.
Yep.
So where the does come in and out from the ag field.
Okay.
So that's where I did. I set up a stand right there, and I hunted that, not the same stand every night, but I hunted that side of the farm every day. Every time I could get out to hunt, I was over there hunting that deer. So,
and what happened? Did you ever see him? Did you kill him? Like, what was the story there?
I had seen him. I saw him 2 different times during bow season. One of the times my wife and I had a meeting with the guy building my house. And so I just said to my wife, hey, I'm going to run back and check this card one more time. Cause there's a little pine tree back there that was just torn to shit.
Yep.
So I set another camera up on that pine tree just to see what was in it. I walked back there to check that camera, and he stood up with a couple does and ran off. So I saw him that time. I wasn't even hunting. And then I saw him another time chasing does, bumping does through the power line during bow season, probably 60 or 70 yards away from me. And then November 16th, it was a Saturday morning, the morning after opening day, I still had standing corn. So I ended up sitting in the stand I had set up. It was downwind of the doe bedding area. And he ended up walking. While I was looking at all the does, I like 8:30 in the morning, I see all the does filing in, and I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, man, I'm like, where the fuck are all the bucks at? Because I'm not seeing. I wasn't even seeing any 2.5 like little bucks.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, I hear a twig break. I turn to my left, and he's standing in the middle of the power line, 50 yards over my left shoulder, and looked like he was looking right at me. And when you see a deer like that, which you probably felt the way when you shot the Hambino,
I didn't know what I was thinking.
Like, I was almost in shock. I was like, didn't really know what to do at first.
Oh my gosh.
I waited for him to turn his head, and I put the crosshairs on him, and he dropped right in his tracks. So,
oh my gosh. So you killed him.
Oh, I killed him. Yeah. I killed him the morning of the 16th that year.
Holy shit. Okay.
Yeah.
So what was he then? When you walked up on him, first of all, before you tell me what he was, when you walked up on him, what were you thinking?
Well, I was still in shock that I knew he was the biggest deer in my life. I knew he was the biggest deer that I had ever shot. I knew right away.
Yep.
I didn't know yet how big he was going to be until I walked up on him and everything. But it was, man, I didn't get down from my tree for probably 15 or 20 minutes. Because I called my wife, and I called my dad, and I was calling my friends, and I was shaking so bad, I couldn't. It was like hard for me to even hang my gun back up on my, like on my little boat, my Realtree little bow hanger thing.
Yep.
Because I was shaking so bad, but I finally got down, and when I walked up on him, it was my wife always makes fun of me because the only time I ever cry is when I shoot a big deer, but that was pretty emotional. That was awesome.
So you walk up on him,
deer.
and what is he?
He's 15. He's got 15 scoreable points. He ended up going 174 and 2.8.
Holy shit, man! Holy crap!
So,
that's a booner in Michigan. That's a giant.
Yeah. Well, that's gross score. I guess you call him a gross booner.
Yeah, well, nets are for fish, so nets are for fish. So.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
I mean, that's a booner anywhere, but god damn, man, that's a big deer. It's a real big deer.
Yeah, and and it was, I'm still, I always tell everybody, I mean, that's the biggest deer I'll probably ever shoot, but, and probably, but I mean, I hope not, but it was pretty exciting. It was, for my second, the year before was pretty awesome, but this was a once in a lifetime buck,
right?
And especially in the state of Michigan.
For sure. Now tell me this though. So the word gets out that you kill this buck. What is everybody, in Michigan, first of all, what is everybody around town saying then?
Oh, I was getting texts, I was getting text messages left and right. I mean, people were calling my in-law, like calling everybody, trying to figure out where it was at, what county I shot it in. Most of the problem didn't happen until the next spring and summer, when the next hunting season rolled around. Because my in-laws actually owned the farm, they were getting calls left and right, seeing if they could lease the property.
Oh, really?
Who was all hunting it? So I've actually been I've been on the defense for the last 2 years.
Oh my!
Now
gosh.
that I live out there, it's a little bit easier for me to monitor everything. But
right.
But yeah, it was crazy, man. I was getting like people I didn't even know of were trying to get a hold of me to ask me, if, just anything and everything.
That's crazy. Now, did you ever get the deer aged at all?
I did not ever get it aged. The guy who scored it for me, he estimated him at like 4.5 years old.
Holy cow. Wow.
So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes back to my best friend here in Michigan, right around my area here. A couple years ago, he killed 2 good bucks in one night. I did a podcast with him. It was one of the first podcasts I ever done. He killed a 144 and a 138, I think it was, and he sent the teeth out for those to get aged, and they both came back at 2.5 years old.
Yeah, I remember. I've listened to that podcast. Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
So, okay, so now you kill this deer. You've got, I don't know if that's a deer of a lifetime for anybody. A fraction of people will ever get to even see a deer like that in the wild, let alone kill it. So, it's hard to explain because you briefly mentioned the Hambino there, and when I killed him, like going into this year, now I killed him last year, so going into this year, it's not like it's hard to explain, but it's almost like I feel like what somebody might feel if they won the Super Bowl or something like that. Like, okay, I got my Super Bowl. Now let's focus on some other things. Like, I don't know what the best way to describe it is. It's like, okay, I killed my deer of a lifetime, like the ultimate goal. Now it's like, not that I lost. It's almost like, gosh, it's hard to explain, but it's almost like I'm more relaxed. Does that make sense? Like it's the pressure's kind of off, like the self-inflicted pressure. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I feel you. Yeah.
I don't know if you have that feeling at all.
Well, for me, it was more. I felt more pressure because I felt like I had some people say, most everybody was pretty positive about that deer I shot, but I had some other guys say things like, "Hey, good luck trying to do it again," or stuff like that, and it would kind of piss me off, and I added fuel to my fire because I wanted to do it again. I wanted to prove that, hey, this may, I'm not just lucky. I actually tried to kill this deer, and it worked out for me. You know?
Yep.
I wanted to prove that I could kill big bucks, and I did maybe know a little bit about what I was doing. So I had a lot of. I felt like I had some pressure going into the next year, and actually, in December of last year is when I started planning for the deer I shot this year.
Okay.
So.
Okay, and I totally get that too. I mean, like you said, you're probably a pretty competitive guy. I'm a really competitive guy. Now more since I've been out of sports and everything, like I'm more of competitive with myself. Like I'll never be the first guy to be, or any guy to be like, why'd you kill that deer? Or I'm the first one to congratulate you. Like I'm so proud and happy for everybody out there that's out there doing it. And regardless the size or regardless the situation, doesn't matter to me. I'll be the first one to tell you, be there and congratulate and drink a beer with you. But like that self-inflicted pressure, like I just put so much pressure on myself, and I'm sure you're probably a lot of the same. So it's not only like those people feeding that fire, but it's almost like you wanting to conquer it to yourself first. Could that be right? And then being like, well, fuck you guys. You know what I mean? Like that little bit of, like, it doesn't have to be verbal, but it's like, here, you jealous pricks, something like that.
Yeah. I
totally get
most
that.
Most of the pressure was self-inflicted, but a little bit of me wanted to be like, you know what, fuck you. Like, maybe you have done this for 20 years, and I don't care. I just want to be the best at everything I do. And
for sure,
I'm not the best hunter out there, but I want to try to be the best. I want to improve every year. So
definitely
that's just part of probably my athletics background. Does that to me.
My wife reminds me every day. She's like, "You're just too competitive. Why is it matter?" And I'm like, "Well, it's something you can't turn off. It's either you're competitive or you're not. To me, you cannot turn it off. It's just what it is. What it is. I can't explain it. So, But anyway, going into December of 2019, that's when you started putting the blueprint down for the deer that you ended up getting on this year. So what did that look like then? Going in, out of 2019 into 20, like what was the deer, I guess, like, in 19, did you know anything about him?
I didn't know anything about him at first. So this was actually, I actually was picking up my meat from the deer I shot last year from the processor. And I get a phone call from a guy I work with, and he says, "Man, I just drove by your place and I saw the biggest deer I've ever seen in my life."
Oh, geez.
And I'm like, what?
Just after you killed a 170 some deer.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, well, shit, maybe it's goalpost, or maybe it's this other deer that I was looking for. So, but we have a big cattail swamp that when you drive by the road, you can kind of look when the leaves are gone. You can kind of see back on the edge of this swamp. And he goes, man, he's right on the edge of that swamp, walking that tree line between the field and the swamp. So I go back and I start hanging cameras. And my very first card pull, I get a picture of he's a 3.5-year-old 10-point. He's last year, he's probably in the mid 30s to low 140s range.
Great buck.
And yes, great buck. Yeah. So I started. I was done for the year. Actually, I did go late season a couple times. So I sat in the swamp trying to see if I can get. I never ended up seeing him last year, but my whole focus was that buck for this year. And I tell you, I had pictures of him from when through all last winter when he dropped his sheds. I never found his shed, but all through velvet and into the fall.
Okay.
Up until the day I killed him.
So you never saw him again. You come into the summer of this year, 2020. What happened? Like, I'm sure you have more shooters showing up and everything. Like, was he? Yes, he's got to be in your mind. Like, what was the game plan going into 2020 season then?
Going into this year, he frequented that same side of the farm as I shot the 174. He was on that same side of the farm as that deer was. So he didn't really go. He never really went. I never had any pictures of him on the on the west side of the. I'm sorry, on the east side of the farm. Everything was on the west side of the farm. So that's where that's where I had most of my cameras, and my stand placements were all set up for this deer. And I just was. The biggest thing was I knew he was kind of living back in the cattails in the swamp, but you couldn't really. There wasn't any trees back there that I could really get a stand in that was close to where I think he would be entering and exiting where he was bedded down and where he was coming out. So I was just there's a little area in the field between the field and there's a fence row that goes into another field leading into the swamp that is just wide enough for the farmer to get his equipment through. And so I had set a stand right on that corner because I just knew that's where he was going to be coming in and out. So that was kind of the money stand. That's what I kind of had all my money on, hoping that's where I was going to kill him.
Okay.
So yeah.
So and you had pictures and everything of him during the summer then, right?
Oh yeah, I've got pictures of him. Almost every picture I have of him is back in the swamp though.
Okay.
I don't have any pictures of him outside of the cattails.
Okay, now how big did he get? Like, what were you thinking? I guess like how much did he grow?
I was thinking, oh, he didn't really. He was taller. He was a lot taller, and he wasn't much wider, but he had a lot of mass. His mass was he was real thick, real heavy.
Okay.
And he was probably, so I would have guessed him maybe 135 last year.
Yep.
This year I thought he was right around the 150 range.
Okay, so he's still a 10-point then? Never grew any more tines?
He's still a 10. He looks almost identical, just a little bit taller and thicker.
Okay, and you think he was 3.5 last year, so he jumped to 4.5, you're thinking this year?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. So, going into the first part of October, are you thinking push right in? And
no.
He's so, it sounds to me like he's like in a concentrated area, like his core area is not huge, but he's not going around to the other side of the farm, so it's like, are you diving in?
I did not dive in right away. I've never had a lot of luck really early in the season like that, and where I knew he was at, I knew he was back in the swamp, but I was scared of, I didn't want to go back there premature and jump him or something early. I with that buck, there were some other shooters I was after too this year, but with him, I kind of wanted to wait until the time was right, just because I didn't want to bump him off the property and have someone else shoot him. That was my main thing. I just wanted to wait for perfect conditions for him, just with him, because I knew he didn't really leave the farm. All the other big deer, they would, there was days I'd get a picture of them and I wouldn't see them again for like 10 days.
Yep.
This deer, he did not go anywhere. He was pretty much a homebody, and I knew I'd get a shot at him if I just waited until the time was right. So that's what I did.
So thinking he's a homebody, how big do you think his core area was then? Like how many acres?
Oh man, I mean, probably maybe like 50 or 60 acres.
Okay.
I don't know if that's right or not. Only time I ever saw him was, right in that 50 or 60 acre area.
Okay.
And that's, but that's what I think.
Yeah, and that the thing with that is, like, if those, obviously he's going to probably wander a little bit off your property, especially if it's like on like the edge of your property, the property line, but it's like,
oh yeah,
if that's where you're getting all your pictures of him, especially if you have a pretty wide net cast with all the cameras, like,
yeah,
it almost can make it, in my opinion, somewhat little bit difficult, because it's like, well, shit, if he's in this small of an area, like, I don't want to blow him out, I don't want to bump him, like, it can make it difficult, but it could also make it a little easier. So, like, when were you thinking was going to be your time to pounce? Like, I got to get in now.
Well, I was always thinking the last week of October is what I wanted. That was what I was focused on for him.
Mm-hmm.
And it ended up being, I don't know how, do you want me to do you want me to jump right into the day I killed him?
Well, did you ever see him before then?
No, I didn't. I never saw him before the day
Okay, so you hunted probably, I'm going to guess, those, last 5 to 8 days in October, probably never saw him. Then, like, when did it all, like, come together? Like, what did that day look like?
Well, let's jump back. Remember I told you I was riding around in the four-wheeler with my kids and I saw that big 8-point?
Yep.
So I had set a stand right in the corner of this field where I saw that big 8-point. And the way the wind was blowing that morning, this is October 31st now. It was kind of perfect to get in that. There's a little creek, like a little ditch that runs through that, the edge of the woods and along the edge of the field right there. And a lot of times those deer will run on either side of that, or a lot of times right through that, because they kind of are hidden in there.
Okay.
I've noticed. So I have a stand right on the corner of the field, and that where that creek kind of comes to a point. And the way the wind was, it was just perfect. And I was able to get in there quiet and everything. So I got in there, and I could hear deer running through the beans all while it was dark outside and everything. So the sun comes up, and I'm looking through my bino. I'm looking out into this field, and it's probably, I don't know, 200 or 300 yards out, and I just see a giant rack. And I was like, oh my God, like what, holy shit.
He's in the field?
And he's out in the field, and I'm looking through trees, and I didn't know exactly what deer it was, but I had a pretty good idea that it was him.
Okay.
And so my kids and I, this deer lived in the swamp, and my oldest son and I, he's into Shrek, so we named this buck Shrek. So I knew it was, I was almost positive this was Shrek. So I'm just watching him. He's kind of eating on some beans or whatever, and he kind of disappears over this hill. So I'm like, and he's walking right towards, I had told you earlier, I had set up a stand where this little area where the equipment goes through.
Yep.
He's kind of walking right towards that.
The money stand you're talking about.
Yeah, he's walking right towards the money stand. But he's probably 400 or 500 yards away from there. So I was kind of contemplating, should I get down and get over there? But I'm like, oh, it's early. I might have something else come. Maybe next time I'll go do it.
Yep.
Well, then probably 5 minutes later, I see another shooter buck, probably in the 130s, chasing a doe right that same area. So then I'm like, oh, fuck this. I'm getting down. And there's a giant hill in the middle of this field. And so I had the smaller buck and the doe had not went over that hill yet. So when I made this move, I actually was making this move to try to shoot the smaller buck. I thought Shrek was out of the picture at this point. So I get down and I run as fast as I can to that. And this is probably 400 yards away. And I think in my head, I'm like, if I can get to that stand before they crest this hill, because if they get over the hill, they're going to see me.
Yep.
So I'm like, I got to get there quick. So I'm not shitting you. I'm bust my ass to get there. I get up in my stand, and probably, I didn't even have my bow. I had just put my bow on my bow hanger, and I wasn't even sitting down yet. And here comes the doe. She come running right through, where the combines and tractors go. And then I'm waiting for this buck to come, and he's not coming. But then all of a sudden, right from underneath my stand, I just hear twigs breaking and limbs breaking, and there's Shrek standing directly underneath my stand.
Is he coming after that doe?
I think he saw the doe, and I think he was past me, and I think what happened was he saw her coming and he came after her then, because I never saw the smaller buck. I just heard him crash directly underneath my tree, and so I ended up shooting him. It was actually one of the hardest shots I ever had to make, because I literally shot straight down on top of them.
Oh my gosh!
And my bow was hitting. I have a 35-inch axle bow. My cams were hitting my knees. I was like cranking my bow. It was the most awkward shot.
Oh my gosh!
But I was able to get the shot off. I put it right between his shoulders. It went right through him. Well, at first I thought I missed, because he ran off, but I didn't see it. Just zipped right through him, but I didn't see my arrow hit the ground.
Yep.
Until he kind of got away a little bit, and I saw it hanging under his. It was kind of hanging. It was dragging the ground when he ran off. But I watched him die at, I don't know, 60, 70 yards away from where I shot him.
Oh my gosh, man! You literally got out of your stand and ran over to another stand. What the hell? I figured I've heard it all. I figured I heard it all.
Yeah, no, that was the craziest thing. Normally I wouldn't. Normally I would never do something like that. I still can't believe I had the balls to do that. I just like, I was like, I'll sit. Maybe I'll sit. Normally I'd be like, I'll sit that stand tonight, or next time I'll know to go to that stand or something. But when I saw two shooter bucks out there, both heading that way, I just was getting pissed, because I actually wasn't seeing anything even in that woods that I was in.
Right.
So I'm like, man, I screwed up. So I decided to move. This was at maybe 8:30 in the morning.
Jeez. But the thing is, like, I talk about it, with buddies all the time. And it's like, you see guys, whoever it is, certain guys, like, getting it done year after year, you know, and you might know these guys. Like, we know some guys that literally, I shouldn't say they give two shits, but like, they're really not big on scent control. They're really not big on, you know, X, Y, and Z, things that like me, I'm like really meticulous about and really think about. And like, you know, I feel like in Michigan, you're walking on eggshells every time in deer season. You know, you're like tiptoeing in, and it's like, and then you see these guys going out and they're like, I'm going to go set this stand tonight. And, you know, probably don't really, you know, look at the wind. And then they shoot year after year. They're shooting good bucks. And it's like, well, shit. Like, am I caring too much? You know what I mean? And we talk about it a lot with like overthinking things. Like, hunters in general, they overthink things. Like, wow, I know that deer's not going to show up there. Well, and then on trail cam, he shows up there and it's like, well, shit, I should have been in that stand. So it's like, sometimes doing what you did is like, you think it's going to blow the whole timber out, but really, I mean, it presented you a freaking great shot at an awesome deer. You know what I mean? Like, nobody else would have thought about doing that. I shouldn't say nobody else, but like you said, you're really hesitant about doing it, and why would I do that? You know, I it's crazy to me.
Yeah, I like to listen to. I don't know it might have been. I don't know whose podcast I was listening to. Somebody had one of was Andre DeQuisto was on it. He was like, "Hey man, you got to go where the action's at. You got to pack up and move or something." And that was what was in my mind. I'm like, "Hey man, like this is it. This is what he's talking about." You know?
Yeah, that was Wired to Hunt. I listened to the same one. I love listening to Andre's stuff. He's actually supposed to be coming on here at some point if we can get linked up here. But like that resonated with me too. He, you know, Mark asked him a question, something like, you know, if it's that hot when you're in there scouting, like, when are you gonna hunt it? He's like, I'm hunting it right now. Like, go right now. The best move is right now. Get in there and go. So it's like that. It rings true. You know, sometimes it does. So it's crazy. So how, like, you shot that deer? I say how big he is, and I say it every week. Like, it's just a good, you know, representation so people can hear it to like visualize how big he is. So what was he?
He ended up going. He was a 10-point, a lot of mass. He ended up going 148 and 6/8.
Jeez. Did you get him age?
Same guy who I never sent his jaw in or whatever you guys get, but 4.5 years old is what we're all kind of thinking.
Okay, I mean,
based off of his pictures last year and what he looked like this year, we're all thinking he was 4.5 years old.
Yep, what a stud, man. So I guess, first of all, congratulations on 3 wonderful years. What, I guess, you know, are any deer still running around that you know of, and you don't have to get specific with it, you know, but do you know of any deer that are running around that you're excited about for next year? Are you still hunting, or what's the deal?
I actually closed my season out last night. I shot a doe last night.
Okay.
But there are some pretty good bucks running around. I kind of decided not to shoot another buck this year because there wasn't anything bigger than what I've killed this year. So hey, if I want to shoot a deer like that every year, I need to let these ones go. So
for sure.
So I'm hoping I've got a couple of nice ones that will be hopefully they'll make it through the winter, and the rest of the muzzleloader seat. Well, I guess today is the last day.
Yep. Well, yesterday. For me, yesterday was the last day. So bow season starts back up today for me. So
yeah. Okay. So hopefully they'll make it through this year and then survive the winter, and then we'll see. But from what I've seen the last 3 years, there's been 2 to 3 really good ones every year that stick around, especially that prime time of the year.
Yeah.
You know, the last week of October through the first 2 weeks of November, there's always a couple good ones running around from what I've seen. So, yeah.
Well, good deal, man. Yeah. I mean, this was sweet. I really enjoyed talking to you. I appreciate you coming on and doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm a big fan. I listen every week. And,
I appreciate that,
it was awesome.
Man. Hopefully my voice doesn't get old to you someday.
Yeah, no. No.
Well, good deal, man. I really hope, you know, next year you kill something even bigger and we can do this again, because I love having return guests on to talk year after year. It's a lot of my listeners, they'll say, we love to hear the return guests because they like to, and it could be like a Cody DeQuisto or like a, whoever, a Dan Infald or something, that they like to see what they're doing year after year. Because, wouldn't you know it, a lot of people out there listening don't really have social media, and they don't look at YouTube, so they really don't know what these people are doing year in and year out. So they really like to, keep track of these people. So it's really fun, and I appreciate you reaching out to me, and I enjoyed this, man. This was awesome.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. So, if anybody wanted to, watch what you're doing or what's happening in the fall, like, do you have social media and everything? Like, maybe plug your social media a little bit. Just do you update that and stuff like that?
I do have an Instagram account. I don't post very many things. I think I've only have like 5 or 6 posts. My wife makes fun of me. Here's the only thing I post a year, and it's like whatever deer I kill that year.
Sure.
So it's Johnny Work 87. That's my Instagram thing. But a good friend of mine, a guy I work with, we're actually thinking about starting our own podcast. We're just kind of getting things out. It's going to be called Straight Shooters Podcast. We're just kind of getting stuff around. We haven't started anything yet, but
good deal, man.
We're kind of toying with the idea of doing that. So
very cool, man. Well, cool. Like, if you need any help with anything, or want to bounce ideas off anybody, just let me know. I'm an open book, and if you're ever around and we ever get out of this COVID thing, maybe we can drink a beer together. So
yeah, sounds good, man.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much, John.
Hey, thanks, Aaron.
Did I lie to you? I don't think I lied to you. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. It's unbelievable what John has done in 3 years on this farm, and he's a new hunter. Like, he relatively new, I should say. He's only been hunting probably 5, 6, 7 years maybe, and it's unbelievable what he's doing. Congratulations to him. I can't say it enough. He is, taking the bull by the horns and really dove headfirst into hunting, and basically it's something that he's never done in his whole life, and sounds like he's never really had anybody teach him. So kudos to him, man. That's all I got to say, really, other than thank you guys very much for all the support and all the downloads. If you could go to iTunes, leave a 5-star rating and a review, would be greatly appreciated. Tell a friend if you like it, or if you dislike it, say, hey, this podcast is really shit, but I think you should go check it out. Just to see for yourself. I'd really appreciate that as well. So thank you guys, and we'll be right here on the next episode of the Fall Podcast.